Hi everyone. Today we're going to discuss Kertas 2 of Biology, Set 1 Selangor 2024. Let's begin. Okay, so let's look at this question. Diagram 1 shows the component in a root hair cell. Name cell component X and Y. So this is a root hair cell. A root hair cell has undergone differentiation to form a long projection. This is the long projection. Otherwise, it's like any other normal cell. So they ask for cell component X and Y. So X is the cell wall and Y is the vacuole, yeah. So the vacuole is very long and follow the long projection of the of the cell that has elongated, yeah. Next, one characteristic of X that function to maintain the cell shape. So just now we say X is the cell wall. So cell wall is rigid, cell wall is strong, and it is made of cellulose fiber. Okay, so cell wall is fully permeable, but we cannot accept this answer because we want to relate it to how the characteristic maintain the cell shape. So the characteristic that we must choose must be relevant to maintaining cell shape, yeah? So what is relevant is rigid and made up of cellulose fiber. Okay, next, let's look at question B. On diagram 1, label the cell component that synthesize the protein with the letter Z. So the part that synthesize the protein has to be RER. So for RER, it has ribosome. And when you label, please do not use a arrowhead, just use a line to label the part Z, yeah? Okay, next. Root hair cell does not have cell component W compared to palisade mesophyll cell. What is cell component W? Now, cell component W is chloroplast. So, the next part of the question asks why cell component W is absent in root hair cell. Now, component W is absent because root hair cell does not carry out photosynthesis. Therefore, it does not need to have chloroplast to absorb sunlight. Okay, so root hair cell does not absorb sunlight, therefore it does not carry out photosynthesis. Okay, let's move on now to question 2. Okay, in question 2, diagram 2.1 shows the breakdown of glucose molecule in human body cell. So there is a presence of oxygen, and also there's another equation here, there's absence of oxygen. So there's process R and process S. Process R occur with the presence of oxygen. Process S occur without the presence of oxygen. So based on diagram 2.1, name process R and S. So process R is aerobic respiration and process S is lactic acid fermentation, right? Okay, lactic acid fermentation, right? You can also name it as glucose oxidation, yeah? Give one reason why the energy produced via process R is higher than process S. So if you compare the amount energy for process R is 2898 kJ, while for process S is 150 kJ. So the process R produce more energy. So they ask why. Now, it's because there's the presence of oxygen, therefore the glucose, it breaks down completely, while the breakdown of the glucose without oxygen result in incomplete glucose breakdown. So the lactic acid fermentation is the breakdown of incomplete of incomplete breakdown of glucose. So part of the chemical energy is still bound to the lactic acid molecule. So that therefore the total amount of energy is not fully released if oxygen is not present. Okay, next. Diagram 2.2 show a type of plant that live in waterlogged area. So these plants are able to live in waterlogged area. Waterlogged area are area that lack oxygen. Explain how the plants are adapted to live in the area. Okay, so for plants that are able to live in waterlogged area, usually they can carry out alcohol fermentation. Now, alcohol fermentation is the incomplete breakdown of ethanol into carbon dioxide, energy breakdown of glucose into ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. So because these plants have high tolerance to ethanol, and they also produce alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme, so that means they are able to break down alcohol into ethanol, CO2, and energy. So the energy is only 210 kJ of energy. So the plant, despite the fact that in living in anaerobic condition or waterlogged condition, it still are able to produce energy, although the energy produced are not much, but they still can carry out because of high tolerance to ethanol, as well as the plant cell produce alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme. Okay. Okay, next we have question 3. Diagram 3 show the growth curve of a plant. Okay, name the type of plant that have this growth curve. Now, the plant that have this type of growth curve are annual plant. Annual plant are plant that grow complete their life cycle from germination to flowering to seed production in a year or less. Okay, so they are not able to live longer than that. So the plant that have this kind of growth curve are they are called annual plant. Yeah. Give 2 example of plants stated in 3A. So the plant are paddy, watermelon, okay, and you can also have pumpkin, barley, and wheat. Okay. State the process that occur in the plant during stage P. Now, during stage P, you can see that the dry mass have decreased. So during this stage, the plant uses all the energy stored in the cotyledon for germination of the seed, which is why the dry mass decreases. Yeah. Plant can be classified into annual, biennial, and perennial plant. Which type of plant can adapt to extreme surrounding? Okay, out of these 3, which plant can adapt to extreme surrounding? Now, the plant that can adapt to extreme surrounding are perennial plant. Perennial plant are plant that can live for many years. Okay, they are plant that undergone secondary growth, and these are plants that can live for more than 2 years. So they are better adapted to live in extreme condition. Yeah. So explain your answer. Now, usually perennial plants have special structure that can regulate that temperature. They also have special roots. They have they are able to bear flowers. They are grow flowers, bear fruits throughout their life. They undergo secondary growth. So all these increases their plant survival to live for a longer period of time and ability to adapt to extreme surroundings. So perennial plant are better in survival.
Okay, we will continue with question 4. Diagram 4 shows a breakdown reaction of protein in human digestive system. So we can see here that they show the sequence and pathway of the digestion of protein to polypeptide to peptide and to N. So based on the diagram, what is represented by N? Okay, so N is amino acid. Now, amino acid is the end product of the process of digestion of protein. L and M are enzymes secreted by different organ. Name the organ that secrete L and M. So L here, the enzyme L is trypsin and M is erepsin. So the enzyme trypsin is secreted by the organ pancreas. Okay, the organ is pancreas, yeah. But pancreas. And M is secreted by ileum. Okay, so pancreas secrete the enzyme into duodenum. So it's not duodenum, yeah. Okay, C, explain the importance of N to individual that has just completed an operation due to an accident. Now, N is amino acid. Amino acid is the building block for new cell to replace damaged tissue. Okay, to replace damaged tissue. Explain the assimilation process that occur if N is excessive in the blood. Now, N, when it's excessive in the blood, it will be deaminated in the liver cell. So the process is called deamination, and in the liver, the excess amino acid will be turned into urea, and then the urea will be excreted through the urine. Okay, next question 5. Question 5 shows a type of organism which is commonly found growing on decaying wood. Name the kingdom that classify the organism in 5.1. Now, this organism is mushroom. Mushroom belongs to the kingdom fungi. Fungi. State one characteristic of organism in the kingdom mentioned in 5A1. Now, fungi is a eukaryote. Eukaryote meaning it has a nuclear membrane, it has nuclear membrane, it has membrane-bound component cell. It can be either unicellular or multicellular. Unicellular, like for example, yeast. Multicellular are like mushroom. Okay, they are heterotroph. They cannot synthesize their own food. Their cell wall is made out of chitin, and their body is made out of thread-like network of hyphae called the mycelium. Hyphae are mycelium are network-like hyphae. So this is mycelium. Okay, B1. Table 1 shows the taxonomy hierarchy of a potato according to Linnaeus hierarchy system. Based on table 1, what is the scientific name given to the potato? So potato is the name of scientific name is based on genus and species. So it's Solanum tuberosum. But the word Solanum must be written in capital letter and the species name must be written in small letter. Now, since it's if you handwritten it, then it has to be underlined separately. State 2 characteristic of writing the scientific name of an organism according to Linnaeus binomial system. Okay, so the two characteristics are you can write the first word must be the name of the genus, while the second word is the name of the species. The first letter, which is the genus, must be capitalized, while the second name is written in small letter. All scientific name must be printed in italic, and if it's handwritten, the two names must be underlined separately. Okay, C, show part of the nitrogen cycle. So you see that this dead organism are converted into ammonium compound by organism X. So this part of the nitrogen cycle. Predict what will happen to the environment if organism X is absent. Now, if organism X is absent, then the conversion of dead organism to ammonia cannot be carried out. So, in other words, decomposition cannot take place. Now, if decomposition cannot take place, the nutrient from the dead organism cannot be returned to the soil. So there is no ammonium in the soil, and this will result in the soil being infertile and the plant will lack nutrient. Now, on top of that, of course, the environment become more polluted because there are more dead organisms found in the environment. Okay, question 6. Diagram 6.1 shows the human lymphatic system. So you see here, they label P and the question says, give the function of P. Now, P is lymph node. Now, lymph node, the function of lymph node is to produce and store lymphocyte. So it is involved lymphocyte secrete antibody to act against antigen. So the antibody will destroy the pathogen or antigen, and it also lymph node also contain macrophage that destroy bacteria. Okay. A woman found a lump in the breast and carried out health examination. The result of tissue biopsy showed that cell Q undergone uncontrolled cell division. So cell Q has undergone uncontrolled cell division, which result in the formation of a lump here, a big tumor. Explain the effect to other parts of the body if cell Q spread via the lymph vessel. Now, this is a tumor that has gone very big and spread towards the spread through the lymph vessel. So they want to know what's the effect. Okay, so uncontrolled mitosis produce tumor If it doesn't spread, we call it benign tumor. But since it's spreading, then it's called malignant tumor. Malignant tumor is very invasive. It will compete with other nutrients to obtain nutrient from other cells. Okay, so that will destroy the function of the normal cell, causing organ damage. So since the cell all are dead, so the organ will be damaged. Okay. Diagram 6.3 show the relationship between blood circulatory system and the lymphatic system. So you have R and S. So R, you can see that is loop is connected to arterial and venule, while S is as a blunt end is not connected. So state two differences between capillary R and S. So capillary R is blood capillary and S is limb capillary. So how we know is that we can see from the picture that R is connected with venule and arterial, while S is blunt end. Okay, so it is not connected to any other vessel. Capillary R contain blood, while capillary S contain limb. And R blood contain red blood cell, platelet, and plasma protein, while S does not have these three components because these are too large to diffuse through the capillary. Capillary S in the leg of an individual is infected by Brugia species parasite worm. Explain the effect to the flow of fluid in capillary S. So the leg is infected by this parasite, and this parasite will grow inside the capillary. So therefore, the limb, the fluid in capillary S will be blocked. Okay, so the blockage of this limb vessel prevent or block the flow of limb or lymphatic fluid. At the same time, since the limb cannot flow, tissue fluid too cannot diffuse into the lymphatic capillary. So the tissue fluid will accumulate in between the cells, causing the tissue to be to swell, a condition we call as edema. So the patient suffer from lymphatic filariasis or elephantiasis. Now the feet of the person, if it happen in the feet, are normally very big and they look like very big like elephant feet. Okay, next. Diagram 7.1 shows the structure of a leaf of a plant. Name the arrangement of the leaf lamina. Okay, so the leaf lamina, you can see they are arranged in such a way that they don't block each other, yeah. So that the arrangement is called a mosaic arrangement, So a mosaic arrangement has advantage because in this kind of arrangement where the leaf does not block each other will give the leaf an advantage to absorb maximum sunlight for photosynthesis. So since it's not overlapping, this will increase the rate of photosynthesis. Okay, B. Diagram 7.2 shows two different conditions of stoma. Explain the mechanism for the condition of stoma W. So you can see that stoma W now is open, whereas the one here is closed. Now, when stoma is open, it means it's in the daytime where the presence of sunlight is going to cause a higher rate of photosynthesis. And because of the higher rate of photosynthesis, there are more glucose that is synthesized, and therefore the amount of energy generated through cellular respiration also increases. Now, with the high energy, then potassium ion is going to enter into the gut cell, and with a higher osmotic pressure, water too will also diffuse into the gut cell. So that causes the gut cell to be turgid, yeah. So the water potential that is higher outside will also diffuse into the gut cell. So in the presence of light, photosynthesis occur. So the sucrose concentration become high. Now, when the sucrose concentration is high, water potential in the gut cell decrease, but water potential outside the gut cell is higher than the inside of the gut cell. So water will diffuse into the gut cell by osmosis. Okay, so this result in the gut cell becoming very turgid and therefore the stoma opens. Okay, next. Diagram 7.3 show the graph of the rate of transpiration affected by environmental factor. So the rate of transpiration you can see decreases because of this factor. As the factor increase, rate of transpiration decrease. So the factor that affect the rate of photosynthesis this way is relative air humidity. Okay, so when humidity increase, the rate of transpiration will decrease. Explain the relationship between factor X with the rate of transpiration. Now, with more water vapor in the environment, okay, so the less water will evaporate out from the stoma. With lower relative air humidity in the surrounding, then the rate of transpiration become higher because now the concentration gradient between the inside and the outside of the leaf is greater. Okay, so water vapor will evaporate faster from the stoma, and the air inside the stoma is more saturated compared to outside, which is less saturated. Okay, now we see question 8. 8.1 show the schematic diagram for the inheritance of rhesus factor in a family. Mother X is a rhesus negative that marry a rhesus positive man. So mother is rhesus negative. Okay, so the rhesus negative is RH minus RH minus. So the father is RH positive. So the gamete will be RH minus and RH positive. So they ask to write the phenotype of the child. Okay, so phenotype of the child will be RH positive, RH negative. Okay. Okay. the genotype is, the genotype is RH positive, RH negative, but the phenotype is rhesus positive, right? So this is the genotype. So phenotype is rhesus positive, okay? Now, explain how the child show the phenotype. Now that you know the genotype is RH positive, RH negative, the question wants you to explain how did this child inherit rhesus positive from the parent. So what you do is you look, go backward to see how does the child inherit RH positive, RH negative. So he received the RH negative from the mother and RH positive gamete from the father. Okay, so rhesus positive, RH positive is a dominant allele. So since the child has RH positive, RH negative, so the RH positive is more dominant and is expressed while the RH negative is masked, okay, is suppressed. Okay, so the dominant RH positive shows its trait when present, while RH negative is suppressed when there is a dominant allele present at the same time. Okay, draw the schematic diagram of inheritance for child Y and the couple that carries RH negative, RH negative. Okay, so they want you to draw the schematic diagram. Okay, so the father just now is the couple carries RH negative, RH negative, while the child Y is RH positive, RH negative. So the gamete is RH positive, RH negative, RH negative, RH negative. The gamete, normally we will circle the gamete, and when you do the inheritance, the possibility of the fertilization between the gamete, we will take, we will put 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 2, 4. Okay, so that will produce the offspring RH positive, RH negative. These are the genotype. Make sure you write the sidebar here. Okay, in order to obtain maximum mark. Now, if you don't write the sidebar here, then if you just write this part here, you will not get any marks. Okay, so if you want to get full marks, you need to write the sidebar here corresponding to the crossing here. Then give the phenotype, rhesus positive, rhesus positive. This is 2 negative, so rhesus negative, rhesus negative. So total mark is 3 marks. State the phenotype ratio for the child of the couple. So here the ratio you can see is 50% is positive, 50% is negative. Okay, so 50% the he will get rhesus positive child, another 50% will be rhesus negative child. Okay, diagram 8.2 shows the karyotype of a genetic disease in human. Explain the gender of the individual suffering from the disease. Now, if you look at the diagram here, this is the sex chromosome. The sex chromosome contains an extra X. So this person has X, X, Y. Now, that means the number of chromosomes inside his cell is 47. So he has an extra sex chromosome, X sex chromosome. So how does the gender suffer from this disease? Now, what happened is there's a non-disjunction that occur between the sex chromosome. So this is a male because he has X, X, and Y. So he's a male. He has two X chromosome and one Y chromosome. So the X and the Y are chromosomes that contain genes that determine the gender of a person. So the chromosome pair that's affected is chromosome number 23. Okay. Okay, next. Okay, we come to section B now. Okay, which is the bahagian B, the essay question. Okay, so diagram show the end of two neuron. Okay, so this is the two neuron. There's one neuron here and this is another neuron. And they show K. K is mitochondria. And they also show synaptic vesicle that is secreting neurotransmitter. Explain the function of structure K and L in the transmission of information from a neuron to another neuron. Okay, K and L. L is the synapse. Okay, so K is mitochondria. Mitochondria generate energy that is needed. Okay, generate ATP energy. Use the word ATP energy that enable the vesicle to release neurotransmitter. So the synaptic vesicle is the one that releases the neurotransmitter, and the neurotransmitter then will be diffused across the synapse and bind to the receptor here of the receiving neuron. So this is a receiving neuron. Okay, the neurotransmitter diffuse across and bind to the receptor, and that will trigger a new impulse. Okay, it will trigger a new impulse so that the message is then continue to the next, carried by the next nerve. Okay, so it allows the information to be carried on. Okay, so since it's neurotransmitter is involved, so this is the message is transmitted via chemical means. Okay, Okay, Parkinson disease is a degenerative neurological disorder, tremor, and weakened muscle tissue, while Alzheimer is a disease of deep memory loss and microscopic brain changes. Explain Parkinson disease and Alzheimer disease. Now, look at the marks first. It's 6 marks, so you just give yourself 3 marks for each of the disease. And the disease, you need to give 3 points each. So for Parkinson disease actually affect the neuron in the brain. The reason, or the one of the reason that causes Parkinson is less neurotransmitter, and the neurotransmitter is actually dopamine. So if there is less neurotransmitter, now that means the nerve impulse that can nerve impulse that can be generated are slower. Okay, which you have just seen just now, that neurotransmitter is needed to diffuse across the synapse so that a new nerve impulse can be generated. Now, with less neurotransmitter, that means less new nerve impulse that can be generated. So the transmission of the information is very slow. And with that, of course, the interpretation of information also slow down. So what is affected is actually muscle. The transmission information causes the muscle to be weakened and cannot function efficiently to respond to the impulse, because the impulse is weak. So this result in tremor or the difficulty in the person to maintain his body posture. So the person will become unbalanced and uh, will not be able to walk properly. Okay, so that is for Parkinson. Okay, let's look at Alzheimer. Now, Alzheimer is caused by an abnormal buildup of protein in and around the brain, and the level of the neurotransmitter is also low. So similar to Parkinson, that means the transmission of impulse will become less. And on top of that, the different areas, different neuron that has degenerate, and that cause the loss of ability for to do simple mm, uh, tasks like caring for oneself. So the person cannot reason, cannot have forget how to even do simple tasks, and they are usually lose the ability to read, write, eat, walk, talk, because of the deterioration of the brain. Okay, and they can easily get disoriented and find themselves lost in familiar places. Okay, part C, compare and contrast the sensory neuron and the motor neuron. Now, sensory neuron are neuron that has the cell body is found in the middle, yeah. So sensory neuron actually transmit nerve impulse from the receptor to the relay neuron. Okay, sensory neuron. So the cell body is in the middle, whereas motor neuron cell body is found at the end of the cell, and it transmits nerve impulse from the relay neuron to the effector. Okay, so in terms of similarities, both transmit nerve impulse. Both can transmit nerve impulse, yeah? And both are nerve cell. Okay, and both consist of dendrite, axon, and cell body. So dendrite, axon, okay, axon is axon, and cell body, this is cell body, this is also cell body. And both transmit nerve impulse in one direction. Okay, let's look at the differences. Now, sensory neuron transmit, transmit information from receptor to the spinal cord or to the relay neuron, while motor neuron transmit information, TRANS, MIT, transmit information from the relay neuron in the spinal cord to the effector. Okay, sensory neuron enter the spinal cord through dorsal root ganglion. Dorsal root ganglion is the bulging area. So it enters into the this is the spinal cord. So it enter into the spinal cord through the dorsal root. This is dorsal root now. This is dorsal root ganglion. Okay, and this is ventral root. It comes out then through the ventral root. Okay, so the ventral root is for motor neuron. Okay, so the nerve comes out through the ventral root, but the nerve that comes out is motor neuron. Yeah, so it enters through the spinal cord through dorsal root, but motor neuron exit the spinal cord through the ventral root. Okay, body cell is located at the middle of the neuron. Now, earlier I've already drawn the okay, so you can see the cell body now is located in the middle of the cell. This is at the end of the cell, yeah. Okay, and the body cell for motor neuron is located at the terminal or at the end of the neuron. Okay, cell body is located in the ganglion or spinal cord, while body cell is located in the gray matter or spinal cord. Okay. Sensory neuron have a short axon. Motor neuron have a long axon. Sensory neuron have a long dendron or dendrite, while motor neuron have a short dendron. Okay, so you must have at least one similarity, and you can have 9 differences because the total mark is 10. Okay, total mark is 10. Okay, so okay, this is the, I draw again the spinal cord. Okay, so the sensory neuron enters into the spinal cord through the dorsal root. Just now you can see here. Okay, through the dorsal root, sensory neuron enter the spinal cord through the dorsal root, while motor neuron exit through the ventral root. Okay, so this is the dorsal root. This is the ventral root. So it enters into the gray matter. And then there's a relay neutron here. And then that follows with the motor neuron exiting out through the ventral root. So this is motor neuron. This is sensory neuron. Okay. This is dorsal root ganglion. This is dorsal root ganglion where most of the cell body of the sensory neuron is clustered here. Okay. And the cell body of motor neuron is clustered inside the gray matter. This is the gray matter of the spinal cord. So to make it larger, so this is sensory neuron. Then you have a relay neuron, and then you have a motor neuron. Okay, so it's like that. So this is inside the gray matter of the spinal cord. So the cell body of motor neuron is found in the gray matter. Okay, so that's why here they say cell body located in the gray matter. Okay, so you must have at least one similarity and 9 differences. Okay, question 10. Diagram 10.1 show the different stages in cell division. So you can see this is a meiosis because it's crossing over. And the radioactive radiation occur at this stage here, anaphase. Name stage X and the chromosome behavior at this stage. Stage X. Okay, so stage X is metaphase 1. So you can see the homologous chromosomes are aligned at the equatorial plane. They are lined up. So here they want you to explain chromosome behavior. So the focus on the word chromosome, yeah. The homologous chromosomes are arranged at the equatorial plane. And then what happened is that each of the chromosome from each pair is tied to the spindle fiber from each pole. Okay, so this is the spindle fiber here. And then this is the pole. So you can see that spindle fiber that are projected out from the pole and they are tied to each of the chromosome at the centromere. The sister chromatid are still tied together and the centromere has not separated. Okay, so the sister chromatid are still tied at the centromere. Yeah, this is sister chromatid. This is sister chromatid. An individual is exposed to radioactive radiation. Discuss the effect on the number of chromosomes. So he is exposed here during anaphase 1. So what will happen is that non-disjunction will occur. Now the radioactive radiation will disrupt the meiosis process. So the spindle fiber fail to function or fail to form during anaphase 1. So this result in the chromosome failing to separate, or we call it non-disjunction occur. So that will result in either one gamete having a higher number of chromosome, okay, this will be n plus 1, and the other gamete will have less one chromosome, okay. Okay, diagram 10.2 show the relationship between endocrine gland. Wait, hold on. Okay, with the changes, show a relationship between endocrine gland with the changes in the human ovary and the wall of uterus. So you have pituitary gland, this hormone going to the ovary, and it affect the ovary, the cell in the ovary. And then there's a S here. So what's the question? Name hormone R and explain its role in menstrual cycle. Okay, so hormone R is FSH. FSH is secreted by pituitary gland and it stimulates follicle growth to form Graafian follicle. So you can see here the development of the follicle cell from primary follicle to secondary follicle, and finally this is Graafian follicle. Yeah. Explain the effect on the wall of uterus if structure S fail to function. So if S is after secondary oocyte is ovulated, what is left is the Graafian follicle will become corpus luteum. So S is actually corpus luteum, and if S fail to function, if corpus luteum fail to function, then okay, then there will be loss of a lot of the endometrium wall cannot be thickened anymore, okay, because of lack of progesterone and estrogen. Corpus luteum do two things, secrete estrogen and progesterone, so the endometrium cannot be thickened, okay. So since the endometrium cannot be thickened, there will be less blood vessel that is formed, so the endometrium will shed and menstruation will occur. So therefore, the implantation of embryo cannot occur. Okay. A married couple has problem to have a child. After a health examination, Madam Z is found to have a problem to conceive. So they suggest a method for the couple to have children. So this method is IVF. So explain the problem suffered by Madam Z and the method shown, which can be used to help the couple to conceive a child. So the method here is IVF, yeah. So the problem faced by Mrs. Z is probably her fallopian tube is blocked, so the sperm cannot reach the ovum for fertilization. So in order to overcome this problem, one method they can use is called IVF or in vitro fertilization, where you need to first of all inject the woman with hormone FSH to stimulate the growth of follicle, and then when the follicle is of good size and the ovum has matured, a laparoscope will be taken to collect the ovum, and then the ovum will be placed in a sterile culture medium. This culture medium contain all the necessary component for the ovum to grow and to continue to be maintained, and then sperm from the husband, concentrated sperm from the husband, are collected and added into the culture medium so that fertilization can occur. And when fertilization occur, that means the fertilization is happening outside the body of the woman. So that's why it's called in vitro. And after the embryo, after the zygote has been formed, the zygote will divide to become embryo, and then only we transfer the embryo into the uterus of Mrs. Z for implantation. So the embryo undergoes normal development and to become a normal baby for Madam Z. Okay, so this is one method that we can use to help couple who cannot have children. Okay, let's do section C now. Diagram 11.1 show a type of aquatic plant that is used to treat lake water contaminated with high content of ammonia. Explain how the plant can be used to treat ammonia content in the lake. Okay, so this plant is water hyacinth. Water hyacinth is one of the plant that you can use to treat waste inside a pond, river. Okay, so the method used is called phytoremediation. So what is phytoremediation? Now, phytoremediation is a bioremediation process that harness the ability of some plant to detoxify, extract, and eliminate polluting substances from the soil water and other polluted sites. Okay, so some of the plant that can have the ability to absorb waste product or toxic product from the pond will be water lettuce, sunflower, and water spinach. Okay, so the method that you can use to treat the water is via phytoremediation. Now, the question asks how the plant can be used. How the plant can be used to treat ammonia content in the lake. Okay, so via phytoremediation. Now the plant is called water hyacinth. It has a long roots, and this root and also many fine roots. So the roots, as you can see here, the roots are quite long and fine. So it can accumulate or it can absorb ammonia at a very rapid rate. Okay, so that is how this plant is able to absorb and accumulate
the ammonia content in the lake by having long and fine roots. Okay, next, based on your biologic knowledge, discuss the advantages and disadvantages of using the plant for the treatment of the pollution. Now, the advantage is this plant, you don't have to, of course, use chemical ways to treat the pollution. So you save costs and it's cheaper to use plant than to use modern equipment. Now, using plant is environmental friendly. So since the pond is already contaminated with ammonia, we do not want to use more chemical to contaminate the river or the pond. And heavy metals is also permanently removed from the water. Okay. Now the plant water hyacinth is actually a plant that floats in the lake or pond. So it is very suitable to use in lake, and they grow quite rapidly. So it is a natural species that you use. They grow naturally in lake. So it's very, very suitable to be used as a plant to treat water pollution. Now, however, there are some disadvantages. Okay, so as you know, using plant is very time consuming. It takes longer time to remove the ammonia from the lake compared to using chemical. And heavy metal can enter the food chain if there are other organisms that feed on the plant. Now, this is very true because this plant could be eaten by other animals that feed on the fine roots, let's say, for example, small fishes. Okay, small fish, and this small fish will then be eaten by larger organism like the larger, bigger fish. So in this way, you'll find that the small fish and then eaten by big fish. So it means that the ammonia will then be biomagnified in the body of the fish. So this is called biomagnification, where the amount of the waste is actually increased, okay, from one organism to another organism in the food chain. So that is the disadvantage, yeah. Okay, next, let's look at the next question. Okay, diagram 11.2 show world human population from year 1050 till year 2022. Okay, so you can see the increase in the world population. Now the world population at 2022 is about almost 8 billion, according to this graph here. Discuss the effect of the change in human population on the environment. Now, on the environment, we want to see what is the effect with increasing human population on the environment. Okay, so the change that we can see for the first one is deforestation. Okay, so these are the three construct. Okay, construct means we will look at these three categories to look at the effect on the change of human population on the environment. Okay, first of all, we look at the aspect of deforestation. Now, when you say deforestation, we are talking about
large removal of trees for the purpose of building new housing area, factories, to accommodate the increasing number of people, the population. So when you cut down trees, so we look at the whole aspect of all the impact or effects of deforestation. So once you cut down tree, you are causing the land to be exposed to all kind of agents of erosion, and this will lead to landslide, flash flood, okay, landslide, soil erosion, landslide, and flash flood. These are three things that will definitely happen when you clear a forest. Okay, okay, so that is the aspect in terms of the soil that will be loosened. Now, the second aspect under deforestation is everything about the flora and fauna. Now, the habitat is going to be destroyed. So because of the habitat, flora and fauna has been destroyed, so that result in the loss of biodiversity. So this P4 and F2 here can be get combined under the same category. And the other thing you need to know is when you destroy or you remove forests, you are also removing valuable raw material that is useful as food, as medicine. Okay, so you're going to reduce or decrease the source of raw material. Okay, and the other aspect is, of course, disruption in all the cycles, nitrogen cycle, water cycle. Okay, the forest is a place where water catches. So it's a water catchment area. So when you disrupt the flow of water catchment area, the flow of rainwater, then the whole cycle will be disrupted. Okay. Now, food chain will be disrupted because when you remove the flora and fauna, one or two of the organism in the food chain will be removed, and that will lead to extinction of species. Okay, so water catchment area is what I mentioned earlier. Next will be without forests, this will lead to global warming. And global warming, we know, is due to trees being removed, so there are less tree now to absorb carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide will increase in the atmosphere. And when the carbon dioxide increase in the atmosphere, then more heat is trapped. More heat is trapped because of the carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. Okay, so that means the earth temperature will increase, right? So this will lead to greenhouse effect or other phenomena related to climate change, which is El Nino and La Nina. Okay, so the impact of and the change in the increase in human population has a lot of impact on the environment. Okay. Okay, let's continue with section C here. The following information shows a relationship between human population and development of land in M, area M. M has been developed into a modern housing industrial area. In 2020, human population are 8 billion and is increasing drastically. More forests be explored, land will be developed in the housing factory and road be to fulfill the needs of increasing human population. Suggest ways or practices that can be carried out to ensure environmental sustainability. Okay, so here now we want to see the practices. What are the practices that we can do to ensure environmental sustainability? Okay. Now let's look at the word environmental sustainability first. What is the meaning of environmental sustainability before we look at the practices? Okay, so a sustainable ecosystem is the ecosystem that is stable, where disruption of natural habitat species does not take place. So we want to ensure the ecosystem is stable, productive. That means you don't destroy any resources in the ecosystem so that it can still be used continuously. And the ecosystem is a balanced ecosystem in which the population of different species in the food chain are not affected. Okay, so a sustainable environment would lead to a sustainable ecosystem will lead to a sustainable environment. Okay, so we want to see what are the ways or practices that we can do to ensure environmental sustainability. Okay, so here there are five sub area that we can look at to which contribute to environmental sustainability. First is the 5R concept, use of green technology, environmental friendly transport, biological control, preservation, conservation, and restoration. Now, it's good that you remember the aspect or the areas in which this question will be answered. Okay, so the first one is 5R. 5R, of course, leads to sustainable environment. So 5R is, there are so many aspects of 5R. First, the first R we can do is to recycle. Recycle anything that is food waste into compost. So instead of throwing away the food waste, we can turn it into compost or foliar fertilizer to enrich the soil. Okay, the next R is reuse. We can collect rainwater, and the rainwater is then used to wash toilets, vehicles, or even floor. Okay, the next R is reduce. Reduce here means we do not use things that will bring damage to the environment. For example, single-use plastic bags. Okay, so we need to reduce the use of plastic bags because they are non-biodegradable. Okay, maybe use recyclable bags and rethink before we throw away to reduce waste in dumping area or landfill. So if we repurpose or reuse the thing, then we will not have to throw away so much of waste. Okay, so this is the aspect of 5R that contribute to environmental sustainability. The second aspect is the use of green technology. So what is green technology? Okay, let's look at the okay, okay, so in this chapter 10.3, which is Form 5 chapter 10, is where you find the practices in environmental sustainability that fit into the question. So the question actually comes from this section where 10.3 of your syllabus, where we look at environmental sustainability. Okay, hold on for a while. Okay, so this thing is right. So the use of green technology means you use renewable energy such as wind, solar,
biomass energy to generate electricity. Now, this energy is, of course, cleaner. All right, renewable energy are cleaner, safer, and you don't use fossil fuel, which will then contribute to uh, more carbon footprint. Yeah. So, okay. So you can find all these under 10.3. These are the practices that contribute to environmental sustainability. Actually, is in your um, textbook. It's also in the syllabus. So 5R, and then the use of alternative energy, the practice of biological control, and the use of green technology. So green technology is the development and application of product, is equipment and system that used to conserve the natural environment and resources, which help to minimize and reduce the negative impact on human activities. So you can, green technology means you use, you develop, you apply the use of natural ways to conserve the natural environment. We don't harm the environment by the things we use or the system we use to produce a product. Okay, so this is the meaning of green technology. So some of the method of green technology is, of course, the use of renewable energy. Okay, um, okay. So for example, okay, so you use alternative energy. You use harness solar energy, for example, and you recycle, you use waste to energy. These are some green technology method. Yeah. Okay. Use electricity wisely. Switch off. Use energy saving bulb. Save energy by reducing the usage of fossil fuel. Okay. Next is environmental friendly transport. So instead of using vehicles all the time, maybe we can switch to other alternative means of transport like bicycle, public transport like buses or LRT, and carpooling is another one. So this will reduce the release of greenhouse um, gases. Next is biological control. Biological control is the use of uh, pests, natural predator to control the population of pests, because the natural predator will eat the prey, which is the pest. So instead of using pesticide, we can alternatively use a natural predator. For example, uh, to to get rid of rats, we use owl. Owl is the natural predator for rats. Okay, and finally, preservation, conservation, and restoration. These are three methods that we can use to ensure environmental sustainability. Now, the word preservation here means we gazette a forest reserve. Okay, so we do not allow any intrusion to the place. We protect and maintain the place so that it will not be disturbed by human activities. The second one, in situ and ex situ, refer to conservation method. Here, in situ means we uh, allow the species to grow back, or the for example plant, we leave it there to grow back to its normal population at its
own place, at its own habitat. We do not bring it out. We let it, every component in the forest, we leave it there so that it will become more again in terms of population. But if we say ex situ, not conservation, in situ conservation is, there are two, yeah. The ex situ means you bring out the animal, you put it in a conservatory place where you let it increase in number. For example, the Orangutan Conservatory Center in Sepilo is one example where you bring the animal out to increase in population. We feed them, we take care of them until they are able to increase in number. Then maybe one day we reintroduce back into the forest to their own natural habitat. So in situ means we let it be in their original habitat, while ex situ means we bring them out, we bring the component or the animal or the plant, and we let it grow in another environment where we protect, we feed, we maintain them until they reach a number of population where we reintroduce them back into their natural habitat. Okay, and okay, so in this way, we actually prevent the extinction of the species. We also maintain the natural environment resources. Okay, the last one is restoration. So P20 is actually restoration. Restoration is reforestation of the area that has been affected by human activities, maybe forest fire or something. So we let the place heal by replanting plants, and that will restore back the damaged ecosystem. So it's an active participation from everyone. Like you go to a mangrove area, you plant the mangrove trees. So that will help to restore back the number of plants in that area that has been damaged. Okay, so the answer given just now are all the practices that contribute to environment sustainability in that area. Okay, so that's the end of the question. So with that, I end my session for today. Okay, so I see you in the next session. Thank you. Bye.